Good morning, everybody. Over the last couple of weeks, we've talked quite a lot about the Boris wave, the absolutely catastrophic decision by the last Conservative government to open the doors unconditionally to millions of people, only 20% of whom actually came with work permits. But today, I want to return to a theme that I suppose I've been more directly involved with politically than anybody else. It does seem a very long time ago when I first started going out in the spring of 2020 into the English Channel, filming the boats, saying there was a massive emerging story here, and that you might just as well put a sign on the White Cliffs of Dover saying, everybody welcome, because the only possible deterrent to illegal immigration is, of course, for people to be detained and deported, as they would be in virtually every other country in the world. And indeed, as would have happened in this country and as was written into law back in 1971 in legislation. Well, my prediction that there would be an invasion has proved to be true, even if some people at the time did not like the use of that word. And of course, on Saturday just gone, another 602 people crossed the English Channel. And the big news story today is the boats are now launching from Belgium, and the Belgians hand them over to the French, and in line with the wing three-quarters that operates in the Channel, they then get handed on at the 12-mile line to the British. And there's been much negotiation between the Home Secretary and the French over the course of the last few weeks. We've given the French £800 million since 2014 to stop the boats, and we're negotiating the next round. But it's all completely and utterly irrelevant. Because if you cross the English Channel by boat, or if you hide yourself in the back of a lorry, or if you come on a visitor visa or a work visa from Pakistan or wherever else it may be and overstay, your chances, despite being in Britain illegally, your chances of remaining in the country stand at just over 97%. So it's a virtual cert. Get onto a boat, pay a trafficker, throw your passport and iPhone into the sea at the 12-mile line so that nobody can really identify you or check you, and you will be able to stay. And so what we want to talk about is some very, very simple, basic principles that need to be put in place. Australia succeeded with this back in 2012 by simply saying that no one that comes to Australia illegally on a boat from Indonesia, and the principles are remarkably similar, that nobody that ever comes via this route will ever be able to claim refugee status. That was the first significant act of the Abbott administration, followed up by boats then, even when a few more did start to come, boats simply being towed back to Indonesia. And guess what? The boats stopped coming completely. The other alarming aspect of this is the whole illegal immigration industry. Big companies making vast profits out of housing people in hotels, in houses of multiple occupancy, or wherever it may be, but also the legal profession. And I'm grateful to the BBC for saying what they have over the course of the last couple of days, that there are just too many fake, spurious claims, people claiming to be gay so they can't be sent back. Being just one example, or the other absolute farce is being baptised by Church of England vicars to say suddenly we become Christian, therefore we can't return to a country that would treat us terribly. And that is why today what we announce is not just that anyone that continues to come illegally will not be allowed to stay under a reform government, but that we will go back 5 years and review all asylum applications. And if there is a belief those applications have been granted because they're bogus, a belief those applications have been granted because the British government feels, both Conservative and Labour, that really their only option is just to wave everybody through. And also if we can see that it is a deliberate, willful misapplication of the good intentions of the Human Rights Act, then those asylum claims will be revoked and people told, you've come via this route, you will not be allowed to stay. Now, the numbers are substantial, up to 400,000 potentially within the scope of what we're talking about today, on top of a massive problem of people illegally being in Britain, which exists even without this being part of the equation. And I know there'll be people who talk about administratively, how are you going to do it? What's the cost of it going to be? Well, I tell you what, with the calculations that Zia is about to show you, the net benefit to the British economy, we're talking in the short term, many, many billions, and in the long term, we're actually talking telephone numbers in the long term. We're talking 60, 70 billion pounds over a lifetime could be saved by putting this policy in place. But it's the big principle that I want to establish, that nobody will be allowed to stay under a reform government. And yes, of course, that will mean getting rid of the Human Rights Act. It will mean, of course, for the moment, disapplying the 1951 Convention, which clearly needs to be updated right across the world. And I think there are actually many other countries in Europe now that have reached the same conclusion. And it'll mean doing those things and passing firm legislation in Parliament. But the point of today's press conference is to make absolutely clear that there's no way that British taxpayers and British people should have to live with a whole load of people who illegally broke into our country, who disguised their identities from now living off the British taxpayer, potentially for the rest of their lives, disjointing communities and, perhaps most frustratingly of all, going straight to the top of the social housing list. And I was shocked to learn that there are 15 London boroughs that are now sanctuary boroughs, which means if you come into Britain illegally, you literally go to the top of the list. You're literally at the front of the queue over families who've been part of communities and paid into systems for a very, very long time. It is unfair, it is immoral, it is wrong at every level. And it's one of those issues, in fact, I can't think of a bigger one, in which the public's faith in the whole democratic system has broken down. Repeated promises from prime ministers to stop the boats or smash the gangs, all of which have come literally to naught. And the timing of this, of course, ahead of the warmer summer months, when I have little doubt there'll be many tens of thousands more people who will come into Britain posing a threat, not just to our finances, posing a threat to too many of our women and girls, but equally, given the situation the world is in, posing a genuine threat to our national security. I will, on that note, hand over to Zia to put some more flesh on the bones. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Almost 200,000 people have turned up on our beaches uninvited over the last 8 years. That's more than stormed the beaches of Normandy on D-Day. And today we announced that Reform will reverse this invasion. Last summer, Nigel and I announced Operation Restoring Justice, our plan to detain and deport 600,000 people currently in our country illegally. Now, this plan would involve leaving the ECHR, derogating from a host of international treaties and creating a new agency, UK Deportation Command. Since we announced that policy, we have seen the ongoing invasion of Britain by small boat continue unabated. Starmer's Labour government has continued the Tory betrayal. Hundreds of thousands of those who broke into our country are being granted the right to remain in Britain against the wishes of the British people. So today we announce that in addition to deporting those in this country illegally, a Reform government will review successful asylum grants made over the previous 5 years and revoke them from those who entered the UK illegally or who overstayed their visas. Now that means they will not be allowed to stay in Britain. They'll be given a short time to leave Britain of their own accord, and should they fail to do so, they will be detained and deported. Reform will do what it takes to uphold our laws and secure our borders. The legal and moral argument for this is crystal clear. Tory and Labour governments failed to uphold the law. It has long been illegal to enter Britain illegally under the Section 24 of the Immigration Act 1971. And the fact that the Tory and Labour governments decided not to uphold that law, but to allow for the industrial scale trampling of our laws. The fact that Tory and Labour governments presided over an invasion of this country does not mean that a Reform government would allow those who broke our laws to stay here. And the scale of how broken Britain's immigration system is can be illustrated with a quite remarkable fact. An illegal migrant who broke into our country, originally from Syria, yesterday, gets immediate access to taxpayer support, whereas a world-leading neurosurgeon from New York, who manages to get a visa the proper way, would not be eligible for any taxpayer support for at least 5 years. And the scale of the costs of this is enormous. In accommodation costs alone, it's over £5 billion a year. Add up all the other costs, many of which are kept from us, and this policy will save the British taxpayer tens of billions of pounds over the course of a first Reform Parliament. Now, it was the Tories who were the ones who first told the British people that they'd cut immigration time and again and secure our borders. They said so in 4 consecutive manifestos. Instead, they threw open our borders and oversaw the invasion of Britain. Hundreds of thousands claimed asylum, having arrived illegally or having arrived on false pretenses. The countries from which they most frequently originate include the likes of Iran, Afghanistan, Syria, and Somalia. The vast majority of these people are fighting-age men about whom we know nothing. And to the degree we do know about them, we know that after breaking into Britain, they are much more likely to be convicted of sex offences in this country than the native population. That's why there is so much anger and fear for the safety of women and girls in the communities in which they have been deposited. Look, the British people are rightly furious. Yes, of course, we all know British people commit crime, but the people we're talking about would never have been in the country and been able to commit that horrific crime had Tory and Labour governments done their most basic duty to operate a secure border. Every sex offence, every murder, every life changed forever by someone who arrived illegally is a tragedy directly downstream from the shameful and cowardly uniparty policy. But that's why the Tories were booted out and why they face electoral annihilation. And then Keir Starmer came to power and quite correctly lambasted the Tories for their, and I quote, open borders experiment. Presumably he then came round to liking that idea, as more illegal migrants have turned up on our beaches under his leadership than that of any Prime Minister in history. And the fact is this: unless the government does all of the following, leave the ECHR, derogate from a host of international treaties that frustrate deportations, and commit to detaining and deporting all those already here illegally, then the boats are just going to continue to come. And clearly the Tories never did any of those things. Clearly Labour will never do any of those things. Reform, led by Nigel Farage, will do every single one of them. We will also terminate welfare payments to foreign nationals and ensure that British welfare is only available to British people. Ultimately, a Reform government will see to it that nobody who came to the country illegally gets to stay. And in doing so, we will set Britain on a path to heal from the many open wounds of failed Tory and Labour governments. A secure border, the deportation of those here illegally, the uncompromising upholding of law and order. That is the foundation upon which a poised, prosperous and powerful Britain will be built. That's what a Reform government led by Nigel Farage as Prime Minister will deliver. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Do I have a press list?